Climate change is something that affects everyone. A change in one part of the world has ramifications in other parts of the planet, making it a global problem. Perhaps a good example of the consequences of climate change could be the tsunamis that devastated Southeast Asia and Japan, as well as the melting polar ice caps and glaciers that are destroying indigenous cultures and animals. Severe droughts are also becoming more prolific, and rising sea levels are inundating small islands and destroying other coastal regions. Some people and countries, however, dispute the seriousness of climate change. Too much money has been made in industry and production, which causes large-scale damage to the environment. Peter Newell says, "Experience to date suggests we already have the political tools to tackle the problem. It is political will to use them that is missing." In the book by Naomi Klein, This Changes Everything, Capitalism versus the Climate, I will be reviewing Chapter 2, Hot Money, How Free Market Fundamentalism Helped Overheat the Planet. In this chapter, Klein argues, green energy programs put into place to save the environment and reduce global emissions are under attack, likely to be overridden by international trade agreements, especially those by the World Trade Organization's rules. Klein uses the example of Ontario, Canada to illustrate this point. The province's goal was to be coal-free by 2014, thereby reducing their emissions. However, the program stipulated that energy providers needed to hire local and buy local. Japan and the EU disagreed, however, saying it was a violation of the World Trade Organization's rules and that it went against free market policies by excluding foreign manufacturers. The World Trade Organization ruled against Canada, and they were forced to change. The positive effects of the program on the environment and in creating jobs were never even taken into consideration when the case went to the trade court. And almost a decade ago, a World Trade Organization official said, the organization aids challenges against almost any measure to reduce greenhouse gases. Global warming was already understood to be a problem since the late 1950s, so why was nothing done then? Wealthy nations claim that they are reducing their emissions, but in actual fact they have only moved their production elsewhere, to developing nations with cheap labor who are now producing all their emissions. For example, China is now the workshop of the world, or also known as the chimney of the world. So it is easy for the West to point fingers and blame the developing nations, but in actual fact the problem was created by the Western nations. We don't think about the products we buy, where and how they are made, what costs the environment, how making them and transporting them adds to the problems of climate change. Underneath it all is a constant drive for economic growth. Klein states, we need to change our patterns of consumption, but is it really that easy as she claims? People are set in their ways, in a comfort zone, especially in modern societies. Just look at us in South Africa. We are such a car culture. Would we be able to switch to bicycles so easily? And our public transport system brings its own problems. Also, our electricity utilities consume vast quantities of coal, and we don't have the money to build greener infrastructures. Klein says we need to change everything about the way we think about our economy, or our entire world will change, but it's not too late if we start now. We also need to think about the media's role in global climate change. Media can perpetuate the cycle of production and consumption, adding to the problem of climate change. For example, advertising fuels the need to buy. Hyperconsumption, as George Richard terms it, is fueled by the media. However, the media also has the capacity to help in the fight against climate change by adding to our knowledge and our ability to help. For example, they can promote greener methods or changes, and environmental agencies can set up websites and reach global audiences to get their message out. There are documentaries, news stories, articles in magazines and newspapers, and photographs. All of these show destruction and consequences of how humans are destroying the planet. Klein has researched her book thoroughly, and she has come up with some compelling arguments. And the evidence can be seen all around us. But in the end, it is up to each one of us to do our part to combat global climate change. However, Large corporations and governments, who are the biggest culprits, need to take responsibility and take action now. I leave you with a quote from Victor Hugo that Naomi Klein uses in her book, which I found quite apt. He says, "How sad that nature speaks, but mankind does not listen." Maybe it's time we should start listening.